An Edmonton judge recently ruled that Pastor James Coates of Grace Life Church will have to remain in jail for the next 7 weeks, pending his trial on May the 3rd through the 5th. Pastor Coates would be released sooner, but only if he agrees to abide by his bail conditions, which he believes violates his charter freedoms of religion, expression, association, and peaceful assembly. Joining us now is Pastor Coates' wife, Erin. Erin, how difficult has this been for you and your family, having your husband in jail?
This has been immensely difficult, just knowing who my husband is and his heart for the Lord and for the church. To see him being treated the way he's being treated has been very difficult for my family, for my children, for our church family, for anyone who really knows and loves James and the truth. This has been extremely difficult on us.
How much contact have you been allowed with your husband, Pastor James? Is he in good spirits?
He's definitely had moments of darkness. I think the enemy really seeks to um, pounce on a believer in a situation like this. So he's definitely had some really hard and difficult moments. But he's resolved. He is in good spirits. When he first went into the prison, I had very limited contact with him. He had about two 15-minute blocks out of his cell in which he would try to call me. And if he had to shower or do other things, sometimes it was just a call to say, I love you. And that was it. But since he's been on the unit, I believe since last Thursday, we've had more time to talk. He has about 3 hours out of his cell every day.
Now, Pastor James Coates is not the first believer to be put in jail, and he certainly won't be the last. How do you feel God is really using him while he's behind bars?
A pastor's hat is not a hat that you ever take off. It's the qualification and giftedness that God has given him, according to 1 Timothy 3. And so you always have that shepherding and pastoring heart. But he is absolutely affecting people for Christ. I'm receiving messages all the time of how his story of faithfulness to the Lord is really impacting people and helping them open up their eyes to open up to their own faithfulness to the Lord, and would they have courage to stand if they were ever pressed on an issue. So I just see so much encouragement coming from the Universal Church, coming from our own home church, and I hope to hear more stories when he's out.
There are some pastors who are asking, why didn't your husband just abide by the public health orders to adhere to the 15% capacity or host online services? How do you respond to that?
I think that really goes back to the first lockdown, which we abided by. And it was a couple months that we were locked down and that our numbers were gravely restricted. And at the beginning of COVID, and James and our leaders, this isn't just a decision that James has made on his own. He's done this with a collective board of elders. He's just kind of the face because he's the teaching pastor of Grace Life Church. But um, he saw the effect on our people and what that was doing to them spiritually. And so our guys really had to sit down with scripture, with church history, and really wrestle with what was the responsibility as God's stewards of his church, to not limit the gathering and to not close the doors to those who need to hear about the death and resurrection of Christ and how they can be reconciled to God because they are born in sin and that they need to know the gospel and they need to have hope. And so our guys really wrestled through that for many, many months, prayer and how they were going to care for the stewardship that God had given them. And they decided that they just couldn't close the doors to anybody.
Erin Coates, wife of jailed Pastor James Coates of Grace Life Church, just outside of Edmonton. Thanks for your time today.